Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom. I'm the creator of rulingplanets.com and Christopher Renstrom Astrology. And I want to welcome you to my yearly horoscope forecast for 2025. For this year, I will be dividing the forecasts into the 4 seasons of the year. I just thought it was better that way to sort of break them down so that I could go into depth with each and every one of the zodiac signs. So in this episode, I will be beginning with the spring signs. And those signs in astrology are Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Now, astrology was created in the Northern Hemisphere. It comes out of Mesopotamia, it comes out of the Middle East. And so this is why the zodiac signs are uniquely tied into the seasons as we experience them here in the Northern Hemisphere. So the spring signs always begin with the spring equinox. So we always begin with the zodiac sign of Aries. And in the Middle East, the new year is celebrated at the time of the spring equinox. It is not celebrated at the end of a calendar year as we experience in other countries and nations. So what the spring signs have in common is an excitement, an exuberance, an impatience to get things up and going. There's an overall optimism that all 3 of the spring signs, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, have in common. Even Taurus, of all the earth signs, is the most optimistic. There's a feeling that things will work out as a result of hard work, industry, and focus. So this exuberance, this excitement about life, about wanting to get things up and going, this is something that really infuses the spirit and the character of the 3 spring signs. I hope you're enjoying this week's episode of Christopher Renstrom Astrology. If you like the channel, please go to rulingplanets.com and subscribe for my daily horoscopes, weekly horoscopes, cosmic alerts, and more. So if you were born under Aries, or you happen to have Aries rising, then you're going to want to spring out of the gate right away. This is the beginning of a new year, and you're full of all sorts of fresh hopes and expectations. Unfortunately, because your ruling planet Mars is currently retrograde in the zodiac sign of Leo, you're going to feel a bit like you're starting the year out on your back foot, that you're not progressing as quickly as you would like to progress. In fact, you may even be wrestling with an intensely personal issue. What this issue has to do with is a loved one. This could be a lover or a spouse. This could be a child. This could be a close sibling. This could even be a close friend. But something has been going on in the life of a loved one that has been troubling you and that has been frustrating you and even infuriating you. Perhaps you felt like you had to finally draw a line with this person, that you were going to practice tough love according to the Aries Martian code of getting tough with people who just seem to be meandering and not finding themselves, telling them to get over it or get a grip on themselves or something along those lines. And so you might have, at the end of 2024, drawn a line in the sand with this person, only to realize now that we've gotten into January that this isn't working, that either the person isn't coming around in the way that you think that the person should be coming around, or that you may actually not be in a position to help this person at all. And that leaves you in a bit of a quandary. Aries, as I said before, being a Mars-ruled sign, you like to sort of tell people to get over it, to get a grip, to take their problems by the hand and look them in the eye, like that, in a sort of combative, confrontational, Marsy way. But the flip side of that is that you are pretty much the superhero of the zodiac. You're the zodiac sign that will go where angels fear to tread, and you will definitely fly to the rescue of someone who's in trouble. The hardest thing for you to realize, perhaps the hardest thing to understand, isn't that this person can't get over it or get it together. It's that this person really is in a troubled situation and that you may not be able to help. So in some regards, you may be feeling like softening your stance, certainly over the next few weeks, that that you might want to find an alternative way to help out someone whom you care about, that you don't want to continue repeating a pattern of drawing a line in the sand, expecting this person to, man up, and watching as they don't, combined with the dawning realization that they just might not be able to help themselves. So a big question you're going to have in the next couple of weeks is your tough love too tough? And what does it mean for you to lighten up on that? Now, this retrograde, Mars retrograde, and Mars is your ruling planet. The retrograde lasts until February 24th. And Mars, being your ruling planet, really wants to drive forward. It's the planet that goes and gets us what we want. If you decide I want that, Mars is like, I'm on it, let's go do it. And so that infuses your own character as an Aries, but with it moving backwards in the sky, with you having difficulty with a loved one or someone close to you, this may also show up with you having difficulty with someone who is in a position of authority over you. It might be a boss or a client or a supervisor, and there is this feeling that the person isn't up to the task, and you're trying to support this person in being up to the task of whatever it is that they're doing, or however it is that they lord over your life. But at the same time, you may be having very real questions about whether this person is able. So should you support someone who may not be qualified in a particular job, or should you sort of withdraw your support? Should you maybe even go to someone else and say, I don't think that this person's qualified? Again, that can create a bit of a conundrum, a bit of a predicament, really, for an Aries, because Aries believes in soldiering on. It's named, your ruling planet is Mars, named after the Roman god of war. But at the same time, Aries can get very impatient with people who are in charge, who aren't up to the challenge of being in charge. And so there can also be a feeling like, well, if you can't do the job, get out of the way, I'll do it, sort of thing. So that may also be another frustration that is plaguing you right now as you try to figure out where exactly you are with that sort of a thing and what's happening. To continue with this idea of your faith, of your belief in people in superior positions and people who are in charge, what's going to be interesting is that on March 30th, Neptune will enter your zodiac sign. Now, this is a big deal. Whenever you have a modern planet enter your own zodiac sign, that's pretty significant. The effects aren't always recognizable right away, but as time goes on, they certainly will be. Now, the modern planets are planets that were discovered after the year 1781. The original, or the ancient planets, are the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. That makes up 7 ancient planets. But in 1781, the planet Uranus was discovered. And Uranus is the planet of revolution and change, and that's exactly what it did to the astrological pantheon when it was discovered. It threw everything upside down. Neptune was discovered in 1846, and Pluto was discovered in the year 1930. Neptune is a very complex planet. It will often be described as the planet of illusion and disillusionment. Okay, and the reason for this is because Neptune is associated with the imagination, with the vision that one has. It's your dream, but not the dream that you have at night. The moon is the planet that's associated with the dream that you have at night. You may have a dream at night and you wake up in the morning, you're like, what did I dream about? That was wild and crazy. And you try to put together, the mosaic, the different pieces of the dream in order to interpret it, to maybe understand what your unconscious is trying to tell you. This is why many people keep dream journals. Neptune is more a vision. It's like a vision that you have, a vision of the world, a vision of the future. For instance, when Martin Luther King Jr. said, I have a dream, he wasn't talking about the dream he had last night. He was talking about a vision. He was talking about a vision of equal rights. He was talking about a vision of a better society in America, one that he was battling against with the institutionalized racism that was very powerful and that came to a head in the 1950s and the 1960s. So when Martin Luther King Jr. made his speech at the Washington Monument, I Have a Dream, he was talking about this dream of the future. And only by coming together right now could we move into the future with this dream, with this vision of a better world. And so when Neptune comes into your sign, it introduces the idea of a vision. What is your vision? And isn't that a galling question? I mean, what's your vision? What's your dream of yourself? What's your dream of your future? What's your vision of the future? Neptune asks you to walk away from the to-do list. Neptune asks you to raise your sights from your list of responsibilities, obligations, and duties. And it asks you, what is your vision of a better world? And what is going to be your place in that? How are you going to participate in that? And so it can begin with a sort of vague feeling, almost like a vague breeze of aspiration or wanting something more. It might start to linger in you as a longing or a yearning for something more. And it may confound you because you might be like, well, this wasn't my life plan. Or how could I leave behind everything that I've accomplished and go after something different that's so vague and difficult and challenging to articulate? And so Neptune kind of moves through us like that kind of spirit, like that kind of wind. And we can suddenly all of a sudden feel like what we want is something more, something higher, something better, but we have no idea how to do it. And how could I leave these responsibilities and obligations and things like that? The beauty of Neptune is that it will be in your zodiac sign for 13 years. So you don't have to act on this right away. Okay. You don't have to have the answer of what you want or where you want to be. You've got 13 years to answer that question. But from my experience with Neptune and the way that it shows up in people's lives, you will start to feel this longing, you will start to feel this yearning, and it can get a little unsettling. It can get a little distracting. It's going to call your attention to what's missing and to something that's further in the future. Now, as an Aries, on one hand, you can wrap your mind around that. Okay, that's fine. But Aries is pretty much what's my next task? What's my next duty? What's my next assignment? Aries doesn't have a lot of patience for following hard to articulate callings from the invisible plane. But there is a precedent with Aries to do this. And one example, there's several examples in our world history, would be King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. You know, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, they come around this table because they have this vision of what the Arthurian kingdom will be, and the Arthurian kingdom is, of course, a utopian vision, but it's a place in which people are noble, heroic. There are no downtrodden people. There are no knights that are lighting torches to villages, scattering the peasants and running away with their cattle and their women. Knights are noble, they genuflect and they serve the lady and they serve the finest ideal. And when we talk about a knight, we're talking about Aries. Aries is Mars ruled. And you have male knights, women knights. And what it really talks about is the inner noble, the inner hero. King Arthur gathers his knights together and they go on quests. They go on adventures. We're used to thinking of it as battling dragons and saving a damsel or a dude in distress or something along those lines. But there was more to it. These knights went on quests that went on for years. I mean, they'd leave Camelot and they would go on these quests that might be like 5, 7, 8, 12 years long. I think one or two never even came back again. But anyway, so this questing for something higher, this thirst, this longing for a higher purpose in your life. This is what the Neptune in Aries will begin to introduce. All right. This longing for a higher purpose in my life. That's more than what I have right now. And Aries being a fire sign, this will be of a spiritual nature. And what I mean by spiritual nature is that it will be a quest for something transcendent. It will be a quest for experiences that are powerful experiences in your life that really like when you encounter this experience, you'll be like, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been searching for. And that could show up as a place, that could show up as a cause, that could show up as a new occupation, that could show up as a relationship. There's always going to be a sort of glorified or glamorous quality to Neptune. And what Neptune will glamorize in you will be those Aries qualities, like being a hero, like being a rugged individualist, sacrifice, doing the right thing, laying down something of yours for the greater good. Now, I'm not saying it's going to say, you need to lay down your life for the greater good, or no, you don't need to do anything like that. But the idea of sacrificing, of doing what's noble, of helping people who are weaker than yourself, of serving a greater cause, of serving a greater justice in your life. These will be ideas that begin, almost like wisps, as I said, like breezes or something like that. But as Neptune moves into your sign, it will become more and more powerful, and it will become more and more recognizable. Now, what also will be happening to this is going to be your relationship to male authority. Now you might be like, why is Christopher harping on like relationship to male authority? Aries is one of the three signs of the father. Okay, Aries is what I call coach dad. It's the dad that wanted the best for you, and wanted the best for you, but wasn't going to spoil you. You had to grow into yourself by challenging yourself and making yourself a better person. So this is the dad who taught you how to change a tire at the age of 5 when you were like, I don't know if I can even hold it, because his dad wanted you to be able to take care of yourself and not be helpless at all in your life. And this is also the dad that if you did 50 push-ups and you're like, oh my God, I'm out of breath, was like, that's great. You did 50 push-ups. And you're like, great. And then your dad was like, let's do 50 more now. Okay. So this was a dad who was always like sort of raising the bar. And again, that was to teach you to challenge yourself, to not be complacent, to not rest on your laurels, to be the best you that you could possibly be. So there can be a tendency with Neptune in Aries to glamorize the father figure, or to glamorize men in positions of authority, to sort of serve the King Arthur in a way. And I will be one of the knights of this round table, and we will do this. So there's a tendency to do this. What's fascinating is that on May 24th, Saturn enters the zodiac sign of Aries right after Neptune. And these two planets are very different. Neptune glamorizes, it makes something more effusive, transcendent, and beautiful than it really is. Okay, and some astrologers will say this is very deceptive. You don't want to fall for that. And if you do, you'll be disillusioned. And that can be true in part, but if we didn't have the glamorization of something being more beautiful than it is, then we wouldn't strive to make something better than it is. If we didn't have our mythologies, which carry not only our memories and our history, but also our longings and our visions, and which speak to us on such a deep and archetypal level, we wouldn't have this extraordinary connection that we have to other people in the world who come from societies and cultures that are very different from our own. So with Saturn entering the zodiac sign of Aries on this May 24th, Saturn is the planet of tests, trials, and tribulations. And so when it enters your zodiac sign, you begin sort of a 2-year tutelage of learning at the knee of the master, so to speak. Saturn can come into your life, and it can be a withdrawing or a withholding energy. It may, for instance, if there is a boss or a client or someone you're trying to please, they may suddenly be very withholding of their approval to you. They may not recognize what it is that you do. Saturn may also introduce responsibilities or very burdensome obligations into your life. Saturn may also bring a disillusionment with your own father, or disillusionment with someone that you had once hero worshipped, which then may make you prone to go and taking those affections and those adulations and putting it on to someone else. So what Saturn's going to do, and that's a little bit of how the Saturn and the Neptune energy might work. Saturn's job is to make you the best that you can be in your own zodiac sign, but it does it by showing you what's not working in your life. All right. It stays in your sign for 2 years. And for 2 years, you'll suddenly start to feel like things aren't working out the way that you wanted them to, that things aren't going the way that they always used to go for you, that you're burdened with obligations or responsibilities, that you might even experience some very real challenges and some very real obstacles. And this is done to remove false securities in your life. The first year of Saturn in your sign, it enters on May 24th. So May 24th, 2025 to May 24th, 2026 is the removal of the false securities. It's the removal of all the things that haven't been working for you. It's almost like, metaphorically speaking, Saturn circling around a car and kicking the tires, and the tires collapsing, the car collapsing all together, and you going, oh my God, I mean, I knew some things weren't working, but I didn't know that all of those things weren't working, and Saturn does it by showing you what was on weak foundation, what wasn't really strong, and you being a fire sign, what wasn't really true to you. So a lot of the tendency or reaction in that first year of Saturn in your sign is to go and try to preserve or salvage that's come before. And a way that I think Neptune may be helpful for you is that it may kind of give you a kind of distance or remoteness, a willingness to throw off the things that aren't working in order to find the things that speak more to you. It's kind of like in those old stories in the Bible or whatever, in which people throw off their evil ways and pursue something pure and good. I'm not saying that you're throwing off your evil ways and pursuing something that's pure and good, but it could be like, this wasn't working for me. It's kind of like Siddhartha, who goes on to become Buddha. He's born into a family as a very rich prince, and he throws off the trappings of his wealth to go pursue the path of enlightenment. And everyone's like, are you crazy? You're an Indian prince. Like, how can you walk out on this? And he's like, this isn't the true wealth. This isn't the true riches of the world. I can only find that, by going out into, the universe. And so that's where Buddha gives us Buddhism. Buddhism is a result of Buddha's reflections, adventures, and confrontations with the world of illusion. You can hear the Neptune in that, I trust. And so that can combine with the Saturn in terms of things collapsing in your life that are no longer working for you, and you finding out for the first time that they're no longer working for you. This will culminate on June 15th when there is a Saturn-Jupiter square in the zodiac signs of Aries and Cancer. And what's so unique about this square is that this is the only time that Saturn and Jupiter will be squaring in Aries and Cancer. Usually they'll have 3 squares, and Saturn-Jupiter squares are very powerful. They're very pivotal. And I think, with this talk of loved ones in a personal life and trying to make things right by that, and Jupiter being the zodiac sign of Cancer, which has so much to do with hearth and home and family, this square on June 15th, followed by a Sun-Saturn square on June 22nd, this is going to be very powerful for you. And my feeling is that it will be about resolving or seeing the end of a long-standing matter. It may be you giving up a commitment or a responsibility or an obligation that no longer makes any more sense to you. It may be you deciding that you're not going to support or accommodate someone in the way that you have, that's it. The money's run out or the goodwill has run out, but it will certainly be very powerful and very singular because the square itself is singular. On July 12th, Saturn turns retrograde, moves backwards in the sky, and starts to leave the zodiac sign of Aries. And so it kind of brings up a lightning up energy for you, which sets you up quite nicely for what I see as being an extraordinary August. In August, Saturn will form a sextile to Uranus, which in August of 2025 will be in the zodiac sign of Gemini. Saturn is in a fire sign. Uranus and Gemini is an air sign. These 2 signs are what we call nowadays yang signs. Back in the day, they were called masculine signs. And so these are very active and these are very empowering signs, energy. This is an energy that excites, that generates, that motivates, that gets you, to do. So this isn't languishing or thinking about what I might do one day. This is like, I'm on it, I'm doing it right now. In fact, when you combine air and fire like this, and we have another sextile between Neptune and Uranus at the end of August, it becomes an accelerant. So this is a period of time that if you've introduced new ideas or new directions that you want to go in your life, this is the time when you want to be following them, this August period that I'm talking about, because it will be very liberating and it will be highly energized for you. And you can get a lot done, or if you're trying to break out of the orbit, the gravitational pull of a situation, this is the time when you break out of the gravitational pull of a situation that you might have felt was keeping you back or holding you down, and you go in a very, very different direction. The only couple of notes that I want to make here is that on September 23rd, there will be a Neptune Sun opposition. And this will be the first time that Neptune in your sign will be opposite the Sun in Libra. So, September 23rd, you want to be very careful about the allegiances you're making, the allegiances that you're pledging, or the allegiances that you're breaking. There may be something about the quality of them which you're being far too under the spell. Usually with Aries, we're always telling you to slow down in your urgency, but this is more like you're too under the spell of something. You're too enthralled with something. And so you may feel like you're about to give away all your money, or you're about to, bet on this one job opportunity more than anything else, or get together with someone. And this is a period of time of which you're not looking at it really clearly, is what the stars are saying. And so you definitely want to back off, and you want to work with the idea of the retrograde of Saturn and Neptune both retrograding back down to Pisces. This is not going to be comfortable for you. It's the way that you end the year. It's not going to be comfortable for you because as an Aries, you're a very forward-oriented sign. You want to push forward. You never want to go back. These retrograding or regressive energies are putting you back into situations that you thought you had left. And they might have been situations that you told yourself you didn't need anymore. But now you're being called back and you're being examined, confronted. Someone is saying, how could you do this? How could you walk out on this? Or how could you, say that you don't have these feelings about me anymore? And this may bring up a lot of your sort of like, I'm uncomfortable with this conversation. I want to be somewhere else, and it actually gives you an opportunity to address someone if it's emotionally or if it's an obligation or responsibility, to address them and put it right. Okay, this is the beauty of these planets retrograding back down into Pisces. Instead of you just sort of saying to them, get over it, or I don't have those feelings anymore, sorry, something that's really gentle and sensitive like that. This retrograding of the planets are suggesting sitting with the person and really, you don't have to win them over to your argument, but sitting with them and saying, yeah, my feelings have changed, or I no longer feel like I want to do this. And even if the person's angry and upset, you sit with them through it. This is part of the beauty of planets retrograding back into Pisces, is that it brings that compassion. It brings that feeling that you have. And so with you being able to do this, it kind of gives you a taste of Neptune coming back into your sign in February 2026, a taste of what it's like to be strong and compassionate. That feelings don't have to be impassioned, urgent feelings, that they can be supportive, that they can be encouraging, that you can be true to a feeling that isn't measuring up with someone else, and it doesn't have to result in a fight. These are incredible lessons in emotional strength and fortitude that don't have to be based on putting someone down or leaving someone in the lurch, but by being true to yourself and allowing that person the freedom to be true to themselves. And maybe that's giving you a tongue lashing and you taking it, but at the same time resolving it so that you and the person can go your own separate ways at the end of 2025. Now, if you're a Taurus or your rising sign is Taurus, 2025 is a big year for you, all right? Just as I was discussing with Aries about a modern planet entering a sign, modern planets entering a sign change the landscape of priorities and affections and commitments and responsibilities, sometimes even character in a zodiac sign. What's just as important is when a planet leaves a zodiac sign. Okay, when a planet leaves a zodiac sign, its work is done. It has done everything that it can do. Now, for some of us, we think that when a challenging or difficult planet leaves a sign, the first thing we want to do is, breathe a sigh of relief. Thank goodness Pluto left Capricorn, or thank goodness Uranus is moving on, or Saturn is no longer traveling through my sign. Good riddance. I never want to see you again. And as an astrologer, I understand that, Pluto is not an easy planet to have going through your sign. And Uranus, in your case, is not an easy planet to have going through your sign. Uranus has been in your zodiac sign since 2018, 2019. It first entered in 2018, retrograded back down, and then made its official I'm not leaving till I'm done entering Taurus in 2019. And Uranus, as you may already know, is the planet of revolution and change. So when Uranus enters your sign, the first thing it does is that it knocks everything upside down. It takes that game board where you have all of your carefully lined up chess pieces, and it kicks the game board over and it sends all the chess pieces flying. And as you can imagine, if you're in that kind of situation, you're kind of like, well, what's up? What happened? You immediately want to go running after all the different pieces and put them back together. But Uranus is like a cyclone that spins through your zodiac sign when it enters it. And Uranus resides in a zodiac sign for 7 years. And so when Uranus first entered your sign, it knocked everything upside down and it threw everything inside out. All of the things that used to make sense, all of the things that were stable and fixed and secure were no longer that, all right? And everything was literally up in the air. So on good days, this Uranian energy might have lifted you up like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz in her house and carried you off to the land of Oz and planted you somewhere else. But more often than not, on your more challenging or rougher days, you felt more like Uncle Henry or Auntie Em, rising up from the cellar and watching their house get carried off, someplace else, wondering, oh my God, is the kid okay? And what are we going to do? Okay, so when Uranus comes into your life, it has this cyclonic effect. It throws everything to the four corners of the world, and everything is upset. Now, some zodiac signs enjoy this, okay? Some zodiac signs are like, oh, this is all kinds of stimulating, things being inside out and upside down and things like that. I can't wait to see what Uranus is going to do next, okay? Taurus, unfortunately, is not one of those zodiac signs. You're the one who's like, where'd the house go? Where's the kid? What are we going to do? And so you might have felt at different times very much like you were resisting the hurricane force winds that were exacting change in your life, that you were trying to hold on to the status quo, to the way that things have always been, and that you were overwhelmed. Either you were outnumbered by people, voting against you and deciding, no, we want to make these changes, or you were overwhelmed by circumstances that felt more like they were rolling over you in place, and you were maybe being flattened beneath the wheel of progress, or flattened beneath the wheel of change. So during this period of time from 2018, 2019 to now, you've learned how to change, okay? Or you've learned you've had to change. And if you didn't change, then you might have had to deal with the results or the consequences of refusing that kind of change. But change has played a very active force in your life. And no one can go through 7 years of Uranus and not change. That would be like a child holding its breath for 24 hours. Like if the kid's like, I'm going to hold my breath till I get my way. Okay, that lasts like a minute or something like that. But it would be like, I'm going to hold my breath until I get my way, for like 8 years, 7 years. Okay, that's not going to happen. So at different points, you would have collapsed. At different points, you would have made these changes. At different points, you might have discovered that these changes were good, that you didn't know better, that they were actually, what you needed was a complete change of the rules of the game. What you needed was for things to be thrown upside down. The rude awakenings might have been really rude, especially maybe in the 2020, 2021 period, maybe even 2022. They might have been especially rude, but you've either since made peace with them or you realized that, you really didn't see the whole situation for what it was. And now you're wiser as a result. So these are the things that are going to be going on in your mind, as a result of your marvelous adventure of Uranus in your sign, and especially with Uranus now drawing to a close of its stay in your zodiac sign. The most powerful times with a modern planet transitioning signs are right when it enters. And then because a modern planet can take anywhere, I mean, Uranus is 7 years in a sign. A planet about to leave a sign can be just as powerful as when a planet enters it. Now, don't get anxious. I'm not saying, the sign comes back. No, I'm not saying that at all. What it is that as you come to the end of Uranus's tenure in your sign, not only have you been perhaps forced to change, it's more than adapt or accommodate. You've really been forced to change. You've undergone these dramatic changes, but you've also become a different person as a result, you know? Hopefully you become a deeper, more profound, or caring individual, but you could also be shell-shocked, or you could also be sardonic or more anxious than certain about things. Those things can be true as well. Uranus is not a gentle planet, and it can leave many of us very shaken up and very insecure about what comes next. So Uranus is one of those planets where you might be like, oh, can't wait to see the end of Uranus. But what I want to persuade you to think about are the enlightening qualities of Uranus. Uranus is the planet of revolution and change. It was discovered at the midpoint between the American War for Independence and the French Revolution, but it's also the planet of revelation. It's also the planet of the Enlightenment. Okay, so how have you become enlightened about yourself, about the world, about your life in the past 8 to 9 years? Has it really just been one crisis after another after another? I mean, yes, it probably has been one crisis after another after another. Have you also become more enlightened? Have you also become more aware? Have you also become wiser as a result? Now, these are the things that I want you to think of. Uranus, which is revolution and change, it's upsetting the status quo or overthrowing those in power. That's how we often think of a revolution. But Uranus also comes from the astronomical term of a revolution, the orbit of the planet around the sun, and the planet completing one revolution or one orbit around the sun. Like, for instance, on your birthday, when you have your solar return, the sun has gone back to the place in the sky where it was when you were born. Okay, that's a revolution, that's an orbit. So you may feel nowadays, as we're almost beginning, as we're starting with 2025, you may feel almost like, have you wound up where you began? Did I go through all of this and I'm back where I started? Which would be like the full turn of a wheel. And if that's the case, that would be Uranian. But look around, it's not the same thing. Things are very different. And the pieces of your life are not put together in the way that they were put before. You haven't recovered or salvaged or restored anything. You can come back to where you were before, but the world is very different. And that's something to keep in mind, because that's actually a good thing, because it presents possibilities and alternatives. Now, one of the things that you're going to be dealing with from March 1st to April 12th is your ruling planet Venus being retrograde. Venus is named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty. And when Venus is retrograde, and she begins her retrograde on March 1st, Venus is the planet of attraction. She brings things and people into our lives that we find beautiful and lovely and attractive. Okay. And so she's an attractor. You might be attracted to someone and, oh, I don't know what to say. And you sort of look over, and at that moment, their eyes catch yours and they're like, they walk across the room and they're like, hello, let me introduce myself. And you're like, giggly. But so Venus is the attractor. She loves to matchmake. She loves to bring people together. But when she's retrograde, that's not what she's doing. Retrograde refers to a backwards motion. It can be an about face that the planet makes in the sky. It's heading forward and now it's heading backwards. Doesn't really do that. It's an optical illusion based on planetary orbits, but I'm not going to Carl Sagan you, okay? It's a retrograde merely, the important thing to remember, it's a period of time when a planet is moving backwards and acting in the opposite way it does when it's direct. And so a Venus retrograde could literally be attracting people into your life that you don't like, or it could be attracting things into your life that you don't like, that, this is not appealing. I don't want this person in my life, or what was I thinking when I bought this? So a lot of times you don't want to make any sort of beauty purchases or changes to your appearance or anything like that during a Venus retrograde. It can also be a difficult time in terms of relationship, because there can either be a separation or a feeling of we need some time away, we need some space between the two of us. Sometimes it's as simple as an ex coming back into the other person's life. I love you, but this other person needs me, and now I have to like tend to them. And you're like, but I thought you loved me. Like, those sorts of things can take place with a Venus retrograde, and they can be very, very difficult and very, very challenging. During this period of time, hopefully it won't be that combative, although Venus is in Aries. Not the whole time. She's going to retrograde back down into Pisces. During that time, if you're having difficulty or trouble in a relationship, it's a good idea to take a break. All right. You're going to want to mend or patch things up, but this isn't the time for it. The heart is not open. The heart is almost backwards in a way. So it can be something in which the person that you were once enamored with can't say anything right or do anything right, or you're the person who can't say anything right or do anything right as far as a spouse or a partner is concerned. So I found during this period of time, it's just better to do a separation or to take a break and see where you are, weeks afterwards. Now, during this time that you've taken this break, you're not going to be sitting on your hands waiting to hear back from the other person or anything like that. You're actually entering into a very powerful time. It's actually one of the best times of year for you. And this lasts from February 27th until about April 4th. It might go a little bit longer, but I want to add that as an extra note. What's going on? What's going on is, as I said, Uranus is finishing up its time in your zodiac sign. All right. But Uranus can finish up its time in your zodiac sign without making an aspect to another planet. And it just kind of like times out. It's kind of like, okay, Uranus finished up in your sign and changed signs. On February 27th, Uranus forms a sextile to Mercury. On March 14th, Uranus forms a sextile to the Sun. And then April 4th, Uranus forms a sextile to Saturn and then a sextile to Mars. These dates that I've given you are wonderful dates for landing a deal, for pushing yourself forward in some direction, really perhaps under the favor or the encouragement of a sponsor or a patron or someone in charge. This is a period of time in which you're going to find that whatever idea or pitch or intention that you threw into motion, it's getting listened to, it's getting heard. One person saying, this is really great, can I introduce you to someone else? Who's like, this is really wonderful, can I introduce you to someone else? Who's maybe coming back with, okay, I really love this idea. What about changing these things? Would you be open to change? And of course, your answers are going to be yes, 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 and more yes. Okay. So this isn't a period of time of like, but it's my idea. I don't want to change it. This is a period of time when you want to be open to other people's input, to what they have to say, to their ideas, because they're taking something that's really special to you and they're making it better. All right. The thing that you don't want to do, there's two things you don't want to do. A, resist, say like, oh, I know better, and B, overthink or overdo. You want to follow the guidance of people who are in your life to help take you to a higher level. And it's more than just a higher level. Actually, I think they're here in your life to help you accomplish that achievement, to help you seal the deal, to help you win that prize or award or bonus or grant or whatever have you. They're here to help you to complete and to accomplish as long as Uranus is in the zodiac sign of Taurus. So instead of Uranus sort of pulling the rug out from under you, Uranus is bringing in people, maybe even random people into your life who are helping you to decorate the room, and the rug's not going to be pulled out from under you at all. So this is a wonderful time. It may very well culminate on April 20th when, that person that I was saying, take a break or whatever, you may get a signal from that person that they're open to talking. And that might be around April 20th. And the reason I say that is because there's a really lovely sextile between Uranus and Venus that's taking place on that day. And it's really gorgeous. Now on April 30th, Venus re-enters the zodiac sign of Aries. And as I said, you were in retrograde. Maybe around the April 20th, you hear from someone who's ready to talk to you or whatever. Maybe you're ready to get back together. Maybe you're still tentative about it. But on April 30th, Venus does enter Aries. It's not retrograde, it's going direct. But Venus has a problem in Aries because Aries is Mars ruled. And so this can bring a lot of irascible interactions, challenging interactions with people, who may covet or be jealous of the things that you have, or people who see you as the problem. Or now that maybe you're experiencing some success, they're starting to be like, who are you to experience this success, you Taurus, with sextile energies involving Uranus, you? Okay, so this might, where you were getting positive attention, now that Venus is in Aries, it might be negative attention. And part of you might feel a little bit hesitant, balking, going back the way you went. And no, you need to keep pushing forward. If people are going to envy you or covet the things you have, better that than you being less than who you are or walking away from the things that you truly do deserve and from the things that you have truly earned. Now, your two rough days, what I would almost call your duck and cover days, it's more kind of like you threw the grenade and now you're covering your ears days, okay, are going to be June 15th and July 4th. On June 15th, there is a Uranus-Mars square for the last time, and that can be very combative. And then on July 4th, we have a Uranus-Venus conjunction. And this could bring someone into your life that's very sudden and very spectacular, or it could bring someone departing from your life that's very sudden and very spectacular. I wish I could be more specific, but Uranus-Venus conjunctions, that's pretty much how they play out. On July 7th, Uranus leaves the zodiac sign of Taurus. And this is good news because you're done. Okay, Uranus is out of your zodiac sign until later on in the year, but I'll get to that in just a quick sec. Uranus leaves the zodiac sign of Taurus and enters the zodiac sign of Gemini. Is it done with you? No, it's not done with you. What Uranus entering Gemini could do is that it could open up a new job or a new career path or a new source of financial revenue for you. At first, you might be like, oh no, I'm fine with what I have, but give Uranus a few weeks to kind of make its case. You may start to feel more and more like the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. I mean, as a Taurus, you're usually very solid and very loyal. That's what you're like. But this might be a period of time in which you're kind of like, I've stood by people, but have they stood by me? And that might be a question about work situation. But it might almost be like an invitation or an opportunity to try your luck somewhere else. And this is going to become much more appealing as we get more and more into the summer, something that you're thinking about. And on August 26th, when we have a Venus-Uranus sextile, and on the same day, Venus, which will be in Leo, will be trining Neptune in Aries. That's kind of what I've labeled off to you here as the tempted by the fruit of another day. And you might find yourself really like, I did the separation with this person. Maybe I want to be with someone else, or or I said I was just going on job interviews. Maybe I'm feeling more like I want to go in a different direction. So this is, the 1980s song "Tempted by the Fruit of Another." Period. Is this August 26th? On September 6th, Uranus turns retrograde. It starts moving backwards in the zodiac sign of Gemini, and then it re-enters your sign of Taurus. Okay, and now I know you're going to say, like, Christopher, Christopher, you said Uranus was leaving Taurus. It does, but the planets go back and forth, and there's a lot of that going on this year. On November 7th, Uranus re-enters Taurus, and on November 20th, it forms a very powerful sextile to Neptune, and it leads up to a Sun-Uranus opposition on November 21st. This may be you getting back together with that person that you were seeing, because this is you trying to put on clothes that used to fit you really well, and you realizing that they don't. Okay, now, we all have clothes in our closet that we insist that we can still, fit into or squeeze into or something along those lines. And that's going to be part of what I'm talking about in this November period. It may be with this person that I was talking about, it might be different relationships, priorities, in which you're trying to assume what's familiar, with the priority, and it's not going to fit who you are. Now you do one of two things. Okay. You either go out and buy a whole new set of clothes and come on back and fill your closet with that, or you pitch the old stuff. And that's pretty much what you're going to be facing around November 29th when Uranus is opposite Venus at the 29th degree of Taurus and Scorpio. So this is the one last chance to salvage a relationship, or if you've decided that it's not going to work, to split. And when you make that decision, you may find a lot of people saying, that was long overdue, or, you needed to do that a while ago. Don't feel bad if that's what you're hearing. What's important with these types of changes is that we do them in our own time, and we don't always know what our own time is. Some signs are accelerated and they make very, very quick decisions and oftentimes have to salvage their decisions or go back and try to recoup. And some signs like yours take a long time to make a decision. And that when you come to that decision, you're resolute in it, but it's more than resolute, that you're comfortable with it. That you feel like this is a decision I wanted to make. I might be happy or relieved as a result. I might be sad and hurt, but I recognize that this was the necessity of that decision. And so this is what that November 29th will bring. And it might bring the year to an end on a bit of a melancholic note, Taurus, but at the same time, it's going to really feel like who you are right now, that you may feel sad about leaving or losing what had come before, but what you have to look forward to is a lot and very, very exciting. If you're born under Gemini, or you happen to have Gemini rising, 2025 begins more on a sober note for you. Perhaps what I should really say is a reality check for you. Now, since early 2023, Saturn has been in the astrological sign of Pisces. It's appeared in that part of your solar chart that deals with career, it deals with status, it deals with accomplishment and prestige. Saturn at the top of the chart can be very difficult in that particular point because it keeps withholding what it is that you want. Okay, you work really hard for something, you expect a promotion, you expect to be recognized, you expect to be raised up and to be seen, and Saturn keeps finding fault with you. It keeps delaying, it keeps withholding the prize, it keeps introducing flies in the ointment, making things more difficult, making things more arduous than you feel like they need to be. And so Saturn at the top of the chart, it can be very, as I said, withholding, very challenging. A lot of times we're going to feel like throwing up our hands and saying, this is not worth the aggravation. This is not worth the grief. But what Saturn's testing us there, or what Saturn is challenging us with that particular aspect, with the square, is Saturn's really asking us, how much do you want it? How much do you want this? If you throw up your hands and say, oh, this is more aggravation than I have to deal with, then Saturn says, you don't really want it that much. If you really wanted it, you would push through, you would power through. If your response is to, redouble efforts or to become in a Gemini way more inventive, okay, what Geminis do when they face a square like this from Saturn is that instead of throwing up the hands, they become more inventive. They become more like, well, what if I move this piece around or change this or change that? What's another way that I can approach this? And perhaps that's what you've been doing with a career situation since early 2023. Let's call it like maybe April-ish, May 2023. And so this period of time when Saturn is getting ready to leave the zodiac sign of Pisces, it's going to be rewarding you. It's going to be recognizing you. It's going to be saying, okay, you've earned this. This is yours. You've gotten to the place where you deserve to get. Saturn's like one of those teachers in those old movies where they make things really, really hard for the student. And the students are like, why were you so difficult or whatever? And the teacher's like, the curmudgeonly teacher's like, I always believed in you. And that's why I had to be hard. And they're like, oh, thank you for making things difficult, Saturnian teacher archetype in my life, because I drew on resources I never knew I had, and I was more inventive than I thought I could be. And thank you, thank you, thank you. So they end up being, sort of like the most favorite teacher at the end of the movie or the end of the book or something like that. That's Saturn's reputation. It doesn't teach by patting you on the head and rewarding you for having answered the question right. It teaches you by making you go through a lot of difficulty. With this square that's taking place, you're arriving on the other end of that difficulty. You're arriving on the other end of really having given a venture everything that you could really give it. But what you may come to discover on January 18th, when Saturn forms a conjunction to Venus, on February 25th, when it conjoins Mercury, and then on March 12th, when it conjoins the Sun, is you got what you wanted, but this isn't fun. Like what you wanted looked like one thing when you were striving for it, when you were fighting for it. But now that you've arrived, it's kind of like, is that all there is? Or it's kind of like, I didn't know that there was going to be such heavy responsibilities or such heavy obligations. I got what I wanted, but do I still want this? Does the reality match my aspiration? Does the reality match my ambition? Does the reality match my drive? And you may find yourself during this period of time feeling very disillusioned or very disappointed with what it was. Like part of you might be like, all I get for having knocked myself out to accomplish this. Or another part of you might be like, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I wanted this, but now that it's here, I don't know if this is sustainable. I don't know if I can keep up with this, and so there's a heaviness that's going to come here now that you've, reached what it is you wanted to reach, now that you haven't been completely repulsed or repelled from that prize that you sought. So you need some time. You need some time to sit with this. And I want you to sit with it through March. The reason I want you to sit with it is because Saturn is moving to a position in your chart where it's going to start forming sextiles and trines to other planets in early April, in which you're going to feel like the energy is lifting, okay? That you're going to go from, I worked really hard for this is really hard, to like kind of getting the feel for this. I could sort of see where this is going. So there's going to be a sort of lift in the energy. You will have one more stumble on April 7th, which is a Saturn-Venus conjunction. One more kind of like, okay, no, I thought it was getting better. Now I don't think it is. I don't know if this was a good idea. And this will be April 7th. And you'll actually have a very difficult decision. It's from April 7th to April 24th. It's a very difficult decision about a relationship or an association, or, someone who maybe had helped you get to where you had gotten. Maybe you're feeling a resentment, or maybe the person expected a favor in return, or, I helped you, now I want something back from you, Gemini, sort of thing. And so this April period might be something in which you're really in conflict over a particular relationship or association. Geminis don't stay in conflict a lot when they're dealing with an association or relationship. If they've decided that it's over or done, What they're trying to do is work out the exit strategy. And so that might be what you're doing. I don't think you're giving up a position that you fought for. I think you may be distancing yourself from someone who had supported you, like an ally or a true believer or something along those lines. That's more the idea that I'm getting. Now, life improves a lot when we get into May. Okay, this is when Saturn has left the zodiac sign of Pisces, where it was squaring Gemini, and it's entered into the zodiac sign of Aries, where it's now beginning to become a more supportive energy. So instead of Saturn withholding things from you, Saturn is showing you the way. Okay, Saturn's saying, great, you did this. This is how we can build on this. This is going to be aided and abetted by Neptune also having entered the zodiac sign of Aries. What you're going to start to feel at the end of May, Neptune enters in at the end of March, but at the end of May, what you're going to really start to feel is like, I don't know, what they used to say in the old cartoons, now you're cooking with gas. Okay, you're going to start to feel like you're actually moving forward, that your pace is beginning to pick up instead of the sluggish train, which is like choo, choo, tugging to go, the wheels are starting to move faster and faster and faster. And this is wonderful. Okay, so once we're getting into June and July, this is around your birthday, it's the weeks following your birthday. The wind is at your back, Gemini. I mean, you're going to feel like you're really going places. New people are coming into your life who are supporting your ideas and the things that you want to do. This is a very, very stimulating time. And this is a very, very exciting time for you. And you're eager for more. The thing we have to remember when we have a sextile energy and the signs that sextile, the elements, shall I say, that sextile are fire and air elements. They form a natural sextile with one another. So when we have the two planets, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, forming sextiles to your natural Gemini, this begins to excite and to enliven so that when Uranus, the planet of revolution and change, enters your zodiac sign on July 7th, this is going to be a wonderful thing. Now, as I was saying with Taurus, Uranus, whenever it enters a zodiac sign, it turns things upside down and inside out. Okay, it is the planet of revolution and change, and it makes the ordinary extraordinary, and it changes all the rules in your life. And usually, when Uranus enters your sign, there would be a feeling that the game board has been knocked over in your life. All the pieces have been sent scattered to the different directions of the earth, and there's no way of salvaging or bringing that back together again. But when we have a sextile energy with Saturn and Neptune, which is supporting that Uranian energy, you go from things being upset or thrown inside out to all of a sudden things being changed. But because of the sextile energy, you can make connections. You can be like, wow, that changed. There's a change of plan, which is something that Geminis love anyway. Okay. Other signs don't do well with a change of plan. Gemini loves a change of plan. Okay. Change of plan. It's like a change of an outfit. So there's change of plan. But then what happens with the illuminating energy of the fire energy, the Saturn and the Neptune in Aries, is that you can see the changes, you can see the dots, and then what the Aries energy is going to allow you to do is to quickly connect the dots and to rework the dots. So what's happening is there can be changes, but you can see how the changes interact and match and go together. You can see a figure in the carpet. You can see a design at work. And as a Gemini, that's going to excite you greatly. Okay, so there's changes. There might have been upsets when Uranus enters your sign around July 7th, but at the same time, this has freed you up to make even more connections and to really sort of do riffs, to bring in that spontaneity and those impromptu energies, which makes your sign Gemini so inventive. So this whole period of July and August, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. Okay, this is where you are mentally stimulated. But there is a story that I want to share with you about what to watch out for that's going on during this period of time once we're into the summer where everything's becoming accelerated. One of the images that came to mind when I was thinking of you for 2025 with this accelerated energy that's coming through your chart, one of the images that I thought of was The Sorcerer's Apprentice. I don't know if you're familiar with the Disney film Fantasia, which was a film in which it was done with classical music and they showed different episodes and things like this. One of the pieces from Fantasia that's based on the classical piece of music, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, features Mickey Mouse. Okay, it's a Disney film, and Mickey Mouse is here in the film. And Mickey Mouse is the apprentice to this Merlin figure, okay, who has a wizard's cap and a wizard's gown and a very sort of like sober, melancholic look. And Mickey's his assistant. Mickey's really the janitor, is what Mickey is. He cleans up after the magician is done, working his potions. So the wizard is finishing up, transforming things and being all kinds of alchemical. And Mickey is asleep on a chair, in a red robe and things like this. And the magician finishes it and he's discovered what he's found and he's delighted. And he's going to retire for the evening. So he goes and he summons Mickey, who wakes up, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and he summons him to clean up the lab as he goes to bed. And to show that he's retiring for the evening, he takes off his Merlin's cap, which has stars and Saturns and comets on it, and he sets it on a desk, and he creeps off to bed slowly, full of thoughts of the magics and the inventions and the discoveries he's made. So Mickey's like, he's like, he's stretching and walking, and he goes and he gets a broom and, he starts sweeping, and the beakers are all over the place and there's potions on the floor and all these kinds of things. And he's like, there's so much work to do. But then he sees that the magician has left his cap. And so he goes and he puts the cap on his head, and the magician has also left his magic book. So he flips open the pages and he finds something which will animate a broomstick, which is in his hand. And it will animate the broomstick, and the broomstick will follow Mickey's wishes. So Mickey, reads this spell, and he's got the cap on his head, and he, I don't know, alakazoom or something like that. And the broom gets up, and it begins to go, and it fetches pails of water. Okay, and it fetches pails of water back to Mickey to use with another broom to clean. But instead, Mickey decides to, basically get the broom that's cleaning with the pail of water. So there's a broom that's going and fetching pails of water and a broom that's cleaning. And so Mickey's delighted with this idea, and he throws the cap on and he, goes back to napping and things like this. So what Mickey does is that he's put on his cap and he's opened up the book and he magics this broom. And what the broom's going to do is that it's going to go and bring pails of water. It's going to go down the steps to a well and bring pails of water back up to the laboratory to throw down on the floor for Mickey to clean. And so Mickey starts to do that. As the broom brings back the water, it's actually saved Mickey a lot of time and energy by bringing back the water. And so Mickey's able to clean very quickly. And as he does this, the broom comes back faster than Mickey is cleaning the floor. And so Mickey, the broom to stop, but it doesn't. It keeps going back down and bringing the water. And so Mickey goes back to the book and he magics it, and the broom doesn't stop. And so Mickey goes and takes the broom and he splits it in half over his leg, or he chops it in two, something along those lines. And the broom then doubles itself. It doubles itself so that instead of one broom that's going down and getting water and bringing back more water, there's now two brooms. And Mickey, in a fury, splits another and another and another. And they keep multiplying until there are multiple brooms that are carrying buckets of water up from a well and throwing them onto the floor of the laboratory. And so things start to get crazy, out of control. Mickey is desperate. He's slicing at the brooms, and now there's so much water in the laboratory that it's washing and flooding over the desk, flooding over the beakers, and Mickey is in a complete panic, and he's calling out, and he doesn't know what to do, and he's on top of the book, and I think he's floating around as the lab has become submerged in all of this water that the brooms are bringing back. And it's finally the wizard who comes back, and sees that has gone on, and he brings an end to the spell, and the brooms fall and descend, and the water drains out, and Mickey looks really sheepish. Okay. Why did I tell you this Fantasia story of Mickey Mouse? Because this is what could happen over the summer. In other words, the sextiling energy is so powerful, and it's so abundant, it so accelerates things that what begins as a wonderful thing, or even a matter of convenience, can become very overwhelming. It can become very overpowering. And so this would reach its peak as we get into late August and September, so that when Uranus turns retrograde on September 6th, this will reach its peak at the end of August, as something that started out good has become nightmarish and you're racing to keep up with it. Suddenly, Saturn, which had turned retrograde a couple of weeks earlier, re-enters the zodiac sign of Pisces on September 1st. And that's the magician returning to the lab and bringing a halt to things. So that on September 6th, when Uranus turns retrograde, there's more of a sense of like, what was overwhelming or flooding your life, it was too much, beginning to dissipate, beginning to back off. So that when we have Neptune re-entering Pisces on October 22nd and Uranus re-entering Taurus on November 7th, things have calmed down, but we're kind of into the next phase. We don't really know what happens to Mickey at the end of this Fantasia episode. I mean, like, the episode ends with Mickey looking sheepish and the wizard passing him the broom and Mickey cleaning up again. Okay, but the thing is, Mickey found a power there, and Mickey found that he had an ability. And what you could sort of almost think, even though he's been handed the broom at the episode and told to clean up everything, the sorcerer might take a liking to what Mickey showed, the promise that he showed. And this is kind of how I see the year coming to an end for you, that things might have gotten out of control for you at the end of the summer and they're brought right and the magician returns and makes things right. But at the same time, something has been recognized in you, not only by yourself, but by the people around you, that you have a talent, you have a skill, you have a gift, that you shouldn't be sent back to being the janitor, that you should be brought up to an apprentice level. And so even though things might end in a little bit of a mess or a fiasco at the end of 2025, nevertheless, your aptitude and ability has been recognized, and that this situation has actually planted the seeds for things to come in the summer of 2026. I hope that you enjoyed the horoscope forecast for the spring signs of 2025, and that you will join me in just a couple of days for the horoscope forecasts for the summer signs, Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. If you enjoyed what you saw, please press the like button. It helps more than you know. If you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. I've had such a wonderful time visiting with you this week, and I can't wait to get together next time on Christopher Renstrom Astrology.